Hoki mai anō ki think tank, kei te kōrero hea te rārangi pōti Maori. Ko oti nā raruraru me ngā ahuatanga o tēnei kaupapa tō wānanga. E nai nei, me kimi o rongo wā. Okay, motivate me. Why should I get on the Māori roll? Why should I take an option? Why should I enrol first place?
If you get on that Māori roll, it gives you the mandate to look your Māori MP squarely in the face and communicate your thoughts and feelings about the issues affecting us.
It's important to participate. How can you criticise government, ask for new policies, new programs, whatever, if you're not actually taking the first step and voting? Get on the Māori roll so you can participate, or general roll.
Getting on the Māori roll is the first thing. I think the second thing which Anne actually said was getting out there and voting, because if people don't vote, then how on earth do they expect to have a say? The second thing is actually to vote. But the third thing is to participate. Participate in a political party is really key, because if you can actually see how things change in the House, it's through political parties. And having a Māori seat there means that we get direct access to a Māori Member of Parliament that can represent your view. Now, there's going to be some challenges, and we've actually seen that within the Māori Party. We've seen that within the Māori parties, that if you don't have the numbers, then whatever votes come to the House, you won't be able to influence. If you're all on the Māori roll, then you then actually get more seats. With more seats become more votes, and with more votes you then are able to drive more funding for health, more funding for education, more funding for social services, because you've got the numbers. I think we as Māori need to actually understand that the Māori role is probably the most beneficial for Māori if they want to actually have a huge say in this government. Now, we've got to understand, National got in the last election, and one of the things that they pushed was to get rid of the Māori seats. It was the Māori Party that actually stopped that through Pita saying, if you want the Māori Party to be part of your government, the Māori seats stay. And thank goodness that we actually had that, otherwise today could be a different story.
Looking at what you've just put on the table, the authority and the power and the numbers, if you aggregate the Māori vote, right? How powerful is that?
Demographics show that we're breeding, and we're breeding at a rapid rate. Potentially it could be very powerful. And you know, if the expectation is that we attain this higher level of power, then one of the most efficient mechanisms for attaining it is via the Māori voting via the Māori roll.
And recognising also, John, that being enrolled on the Māori electoral roll doesn't necessarily mean those voters are going to vote for the Māori Party. You know, there's been a strong move back to Labour. You know, we have Labour, we've got 3 of those Māori electorates after the next election. If the Māori Party doesn't get their act together, and I'm wondering whether some of these stats about Māori moving on to the general role and so forth, where it's a zero-sum game, is this part of the infighting that we're seeing out in the public arena? Māori have still and are still giving their party vote to Labour. That electorate vote, if you're on the Māori roll, may very well, in some of the other electorates, may go back to Labour. Certainly, I think Labour's going to be looking towards that.
Even if we got the 13 seats, right? I don't even see that happening, but even if you did, how do you get past the point that you're always going to be in the minority position?
I think the numbers is actually really key. If we had the numbers, say, at the vote when they were looking at opening up the opportunity to sell part of the power companies, having 13 members of Parliament who are of Māori descent in the House, that could have actually changed that decision. And I think
you had all the Māoris of Māori descent in there.
Yes, but the mainstream parties actually pushed their Māori MPs to vote in a particular way. And I think that what we need to do is, if you're a Māori party or a mana party, that you'd be able to actually push, if you had those 13 seats, for change to actually happen within Parliament. And that could have actually stopped the sale of those assets, which the majority of New Zealanders actually said they didn't want to have happen.
And the Māori MPs consult at a different level, that they get out and they go to hui. We're getting better at turning up to hui these days. I think we are becoming more politicised as a people, as part of this cultural renaissance. Having them there in person at a hui is empowering in itself.
Yes. Now, there's one other curly one that I just wanted you to give me an observation on. With the rise of so-called iwitanga, do you anticipate ever waka affiliations, people voting off the iwi register, forming part of the national polling in electorates?
Logistically, it seems very difficult. I mean, it'd be nice if that could happen, but I mean, we've got bones all over the show. The modern Maori has links to many different iwi, and so yeah, I think logistically that would be a big ask and probably impossible.
Yeah, redrawing the electoral boundaries is going to be problematic. Even if we had 13 Maori electorates, the geographics of drawing those boundaries is going to be hugely problematic for iwi links in trying to vote with your own iwi.
All iwi have actually moved away from their tūranga waiwai to come here to Tāmaki Makaurau to actually work. So that's always going to be a challenge. Tāmaki Makaurau is going to probably be the hardest seat to ever win as a Māori electorate because you've got too many people that you have to represent. Coming back to your question of looking at iwi boundaries, I believe that would be beneficial for the likes of Waiariki and Tairāwhiti, but coming back to Auckland won't actually work because you've got too many Māori who are represented in this city.
Okay, so we're just coming for a wrap now. People watching the program right now, if you were to give them one or two tips to motivate them to get on the Māori roll, what would it be?
Get enrolled on either electoral roll because we've got local government elections coming up in a few months' time, and if you're not on the electoral roll, you can't even participate in local government elections, let alone next year when we've got national elections.
Right. So just get on a roll.
Get on the roll.
That's right. I mean, we've got until July to enrol on the Māori roll or on the general roll. My preference would always be the Māori roll, but we've got, once you actually make that decision, then you've got another 5 more years before you can decide to go to another.
Yeah.
Māku hei haka takato I te Mānuka, get on the Māori roll. It's a wonderful way to express being Māori. I might be cheeky in saying it, but if you're not on the Māori roll, maybe you're just not Māori enough.
Yeah, no, I probably agree with that. I'm on the general roll.
Yeah. Get on the Māori roll then.
But that's because those nasty natives threw me out in Tāmaki Makaurau. But well, look, so just to get a wrap up here, because there's a hell of a lot that's come out of the conversation. I think we've got a constitutional entitlement to separate representation in Parliament. It's as simple as that. I think it's a very simple discussion and debate, and that sets us aside as First Nations tangata whenua peoples, so that the seats will remain until Māori people say they should go. The second point is that getting people motivated and onto the roll is important, and for all the reasons expressed about our negative social indicators, it is a chore just living for a lot of people, let alone making major decisions that others take for granted. And that's the point that you've made, Anne. And so we need to work harder on that. And how do we do that? Well, it's quite clear that our very large infrastructure now growing in iwitanga organisations have to take a fixation away from the money side of the equation and look at the people and where they are going to be positioned. And because I don't see annual options as an option, I think the big 5-year option is a very important option. So we're going to have to raise energy around it to have a discussion as to why you'd go on the Māori roll, what are the benefits. And we're in an interesting time in politics, aren't we? And it is right that we have contest amongst us as Māori in terms of direction forward. That's why the Labour Party is led by Pākehā, who fight National Party led by Pākehā. They can't get it together either. So anyway, so we look forward to see exactly how this option rides out. Ko pautu wā ki a tātou, he te iwi, he mihi ana ki a koutou. Mā te wānanga I te kōrero, ka puta nā hua. Hei tērā wiki ka hui anō ki te wānanga kaupapa, no horo mai. A tērā wiki, ka whai rongo a mātou I te take, the living wage. Federated Farmers, Business New Zealand, round table, the silence is deafening. Mena kei te pirangi koe ki te whakaputa kōrero mo I nei kaupapa. Tuhia mai ki te mātou whārangi pukamata. Mena kei te pirangi koe ki te mā takitaki anō I tēnei hōtaka me te whānuitanga o ngā kōrero mo tēnei kaupapa. Te roa here, a TV3 On Demand.
He mea tau toko na te manga. Kai pāho.